Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sara Jane, and I am delighted to be joined by Robyn Harris for the program this evening, our time. Robyn, thank you so much for joining me. And you're going to be sharing with us tonight, Taking Back Your Power, a wild, W-I-L-D, approach to well-being.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for inviting me along, Sara Jane. I'm so excited to be here and to have this conversation with you.
It's great to be sharing sort of new things, different things. That's what these programs are all about, helping people to realize exactly what is out there that might be able to support them and hopefully will resonate with them. So let me just share a little bit about Robyn. Robyn Harris is a well-being practitioner, speaker and author dedicated to helping people reclaim their health, vitality and joy. After experiencing burnout as a sign language interpreter, she's embarked on a profound healing journey, one she now shares through her book, Take a Walk on the Wild, W-I-L-D side, and her transformative W-I-L-D, well-being approach. Robyn's work is rooted in the belief that our bodies hold deep wisdom and that true healing comes from understanding and working with, rather than against, our natural rhythms. Through bespoke coaching, energy techniques, and workshops, she supports individuals in tuning into their body's signals for greater self-awareness and balance, navigating stress and challenges with confidence and clarity, rediscovering joy and vitality by embracing the wonderful, intuitive, loving dance of life. Wild. Robyn, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And let me start by asking, share a little more of your story and how wild came about.
Well, if I go back to, let me think, probably around the year 2000, and I was in a job, a career that I had chosen and that I'd got into because of a passion for sign language and for that form of communication. I think communication has always intrigued me, how we use language. And so I was doing this job, but I was doing it in a place that I was finding deeply, deeply challenging. My boss was a bullying boss and was re-triggering memories from my childhood. But these things come up in order for us to work through them, process them. And within that, there's a lot of learning. I wasn't quite ready for that learning yet. So there I am doing this job that I've created for myself, therefore theoretically love, and finding I'm really, really struggling. And at home, I was struggling as well. And at one point, my husband said to me, "You've had a sense of humor bypass. You're not the person that I met and fell in love with." Eek. So that was one of those metaphorical kicks up the behind. And I realized I needed to do something, but I didn't know what to do, who to turn to. I had a sense of what I kind of was looking for and hoping for, but couldn't have put it into words in order to ask anybody, where can I find X? So I thought I'll just go along the traditional route. I'll go to the doctor. He prescribed medication and sent me for counseling. I was kind of almost doing this, I don't know what this says about my personality, to prove that they wouldn't work. I knew they wouldn't work. So I took one pill and got so dazed and phased out that I thought, no more of those. And I went along to the counseling and I just felt like it was recreating and recreating and recreating. And I was digging a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper hole. And it was only relatively recently, looking back, that I thought what I wanted was something that helped me feel empowered, something that helped me feel like I have the tools, my tools, that I can use for whatever situation comes. Because I knew life was always going to throw me curveballs. There were always going to be things that I didn't expect, that would be challenging, that I would need to work through. But what I was finding was just, I feel more dependent. So I'm dependent on the medication, or I'm dependent on somebody to talk to me and tell me, because I was kind of waiting for them to give, the magic wand was going to fix everything. So I'm really grateful that they didn't work for me. And that's not to say there isn't a place for both counselling and medication. Absolutely there is, but they weren't working for me. They weren't what I was looking for which I am grateful. So having been in that place where I then thought, well, where do I go? The medication didn't work. The counselling wasn't working. What do I do? There's nothing, there's nothing left. So I, being a bookworm, decided to read, to try and find something. And I ended up, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And things just kept kind of coming coincidentally into my life. I read some amazing books. I joined a course, which was a 9-month online course that was it was based on a book by Andrew Cohen called Evolutionary Enlightenment. And that started my shift of focus and how I was seeing things. And there were 3 main quotes that I always mention. I put them in my book, that we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. The moment you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Wayne Dyer. The moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry of your body. Bruce Lipton. And I'd been experiencing various little health niggles that were just, on their own, weren't huge, but as a combination, they were really getting me down. I had IBS, migraines, headaches, aches and pains, eczema. And I, again, was going to the doctor and, you might have diabetes. You're borderline for diabetes. Your blood test is giving us some warning signs. You might have fibromyalgia. You might have low thyroid. So again, lots of potential, but not massive, not confirmed diagnoses. So again, what do I do? But as I started to explore this stuff, I thought, what can I do for me? And I went off and I studied Reiki. And then I did healing with the Healing Trust, which was 2 years. And I did case studies and learned so much. It was brilliant. I loved it. And then I went on to do EFT. So I was getting into energy stuff, energy work, because I loved it. A doctor, a GP back in Ireland had introduced me to energy, and I was hooked. I was fascinated, and then discovered all these wonderful tools that we can use to shift things, and realizing when you shift things, oh my goodness, small changes have massive impacts in your life. And that whole perception, and it all just started to come together for me. And then I went to a therapist again in Ireland, and she said to me, what is it in life that lights you up? What makes your heart sing? What do you love? And at that time, all I wanted to say was nothing. But from somewhere deep inside of me, almost, to my shock, where did this come from? I said nature. And at that time, if I'd opened the windows, opened the curtains and seen that it was a grey day and it was wet, I would have thought, no, I'm staying inside today. Nature, where the hell did I say that from? But she gave me a challenge to walk in the park every day, rain, hail, snow, it doesn't matter. Go out and walk in the park. And where we had a garden that was just plain grass and moss, to transform it into a wildlife garden. So I did. And that taught me so much about seasons and working with the earth and just trusting in that ebb and flow and life, the force of life, and then to see the garden come alive and the feeling of joy from that, as opposed to the just bland boringness that it had been beforehand. That bringing all those things together, that's where wild came from nature, from wonder and joy, from listening to our body and working with it, the intuition, from learning to love ourselves as we are. So often we beat ourselves up. We take on board all of those things we've heard as we're growing up, and it becomes our inner critic. And it's can be really mean and nasty to us. I know mine has been. And dance. I used to say, and I hear it from people now, it's 1 step forward and 2 steps back. But if that was a dance, it's just part of the dance. And I used to think it's a competition. I'm being judged. You know, I'm always found lacking. I'm not good enough. So if I could put that aside and say, it's just an experience. We are here to enjoy. Enjoy. It's a choice. We get to bring joy into the things that we do. So being able to see life as a dance, and really through all of this work and through nature, that amazing gift that life is. So let's dance with it. Dancing with all aspects of it, whether that's the stuff we want or the shadow. But for me, the shadow is just the parts of us that haven't had that love, that are just asking for it. So when we can love them and give them expression and embrace them, and as Neale Donald Walsh talks about, remember, as in bring back into membership of part of who I am, my being, they're not something to be afraid of. And in fact, they can, and I write in the book about things we sometimes say, like, I'm stubborn. We could say I'm somebody who perseveres. I don't give up. We label things. So again, coming back to how we use language. So our shadow, the things that we can be ashamed of and want to hide, they have gifts for us. So a long-winded way of saying that's where wild came from. And that's what brought me to where I am today.
And so much you've said there has just sort of like almost a mirror. I remember sitting on the stairs in my little house thinking, what can I learn for me? And I hadn't realized what I was doing was saying to the universe.
Yes.
And the universe brought it, and it was Reiki.
Yeah, because the universe is listening.
Yeah.
And remembering that we are just a part of that. We are like the drop in the ocean, the sparkle on the surface of the ocean. We are a part of the ocean, and the ocean is a part of us. That kind of holographic way of looking at the universe. So if we put it out there, the energy that is within us, around us, everything is going to bring that back. But also being aware that if we think, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, the universe doesn't hear the don't.
Exactly.
It just hears that I'm putting a lot of attention on that. Oh, you must like that very much. I'll bring you more.
Oh, 100%. It is so becoming aware of that. It really is. And it was just listening to sort of so many things in there. And I was just thinking, yes, I get it. And love for ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not taught, too many of us, and I think it's the majority of us, are not taught that it's okay to love ourselves. You know, as a child, we do not understand how to deal with the things that happen to us and the things that are said to us. And they become those shadow parts, those parts of us that we disconnect from ourselves because basically we've been told they're no good.
Or not wanted or shameful.
Yeah, 100%. Yet they are probably an exceptionally important part of ourselves. So it's supporting the healing of the inner child, those aspects of us, and creating ourselves as that whole being again, as we were born.
Yes.
And nature doesn't reject, well, correct, I'd say nature doesn't reject anything. Obviously, there are animals when there's a runt of a litter or whatever, they're too weak. And I appreciate that in some respects that nature can do a rejection, but on the whole, she doesn't.
But they still play a part.
Oh, absolutely.
Nature is raw in tooth and claw. And you watch a wildlife program and you see it's the old, the weak, the very young that get taken by the predator. Yeah. And that's just a part of nature. And it all feeds into the whole. They're not lost. So no matter who you are, you still have a role to play. And that, you know, we might look at somebody and think, what do you contribute? Because quite often you look at maybe people in history, disabled people have been put into institutions and kept separate. No, but now we're starting mainstreaming education much more now. And there's a place for that for certain people. I know the deaf community, I'm as a sign language interpreter, part of the deaf community, and the deaf community like having schools for themselves, but then they're not disabled from the deaf perspective. So whatever suits the person and the group or community that they belong to, I feel that we should respect that. And we do now have much more of an open ear for lived experience. What do you want? What do you need? It's your life. You're the one who's the expert on that.
Oh, and you're talking here to somebody who's worked with adults and children with learning difficulties. The original term being mentally handicapped, which they've ditched, learning difficulties, and now they keep talking about neurodiverse. Physical difficulties, mental, emotional difficulties. But I remember working with one particular lady, and I can't remember what the condition she had was, but the family said, oh, she can't do this and she can't do that. Well, when she came out with me, because I did shared care, so I only had her for a few hours every week or fortnight or whatever it was, just to give the family a little bit of respite. I got her to do things they couldn't. Things that her condition said she couldn't do. But I had so few hours with her, I was able to do the empowering rather than it's quicker if I do it, which sadly is in too many cases happens, which takes away that possibility of empowerment.
And what's with the focus on can't versus, well, what does the person enjoy doing? What can they do? How can we build on that? How can we use their interests to expand their life rather than just can't contract it?
Yeah. Oh, but it goes the same for each and every single one of us.
Absolutely.
We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. And going back to the neurodiversity, which is becoming, there's so much more awareness of it now on so many levels. And my youngest sister at 55 was diagnosed with dyslexia, ADHD, autism spectrum, complex PTSD. Listening to her, okay, I probably have aspects of dyslexia and have had all my life. But I've learned to deal with it, and I actually know my strengths. I know the things I can cope with and the things I can't cope with.
And I'd much rather look at it from that perspective, because I think many of us, and women, they're saying, are less likely to be diagnosed, even though they may have, because we're apparently better at masking. So I think there are probably many of us who have something going on. And from the work that I do, a lot of these things we would say are trauma responses anyway, ADHD and so on. So we all have various different aspects of our lives and things that we are our strengths, things that we're not so good at. But that's fine, because life's a rich tapestry and we can't all be good at one thing and nobody good at another thing. We each contribute different things, but it's finding what are my passions, my interests, my strengths, and how can I contribute from those? And there's a movement now to not worry so much about bringing up your weaknesses, but just focus on your strengths and use those, because we all have different strengths. So different people will contribute different things. We don't all have to be fantastic at everything. So if you've got a weakness, hey, delegate.
But then it's that cartoon, and I don't know whether you've seen it, and they've got this desk with a couple of people sat behind it. They've got a tree behind the group of animals in front of them. And you've got like a monkey and an elephant and a fish and a something else and a something else. And it's, if you judge each and every person on their ability, or these being on their ability to climb a tree.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to be the same, because otherwise we'd all be doing the same job and none of the others would get done. Or too many of us would be doing jobs that we don't want to do, we can't do, we don't like, that don't speak to us, that don't resonate with us. And it's just like, we're meant to be unique. The way I look at it is, we are born perfect for the life experiences we have chosen to have for this life. And those people, as much with physical and emotional and mental difficulties, is not their gift in some respects for those who have chosen to be carers.
Yeah.
Because if you've chosen to be a carer, but there's nobody in this world that requires caring for.
But also, because I work with animals as well, and if you're caring for and working for somebody who's maybe doesn't have language or has a language different from you, and then you have to communicate on a different level and you have to connect with that person, or you're trying to bring out the best in that person or that animal, that is such a learning and such a privilege for the person who's doing the support work, the caring, the teaching, whatever it might be. And it, you know, when I'm working with an animal, they're my teacher, as much as I might be trying to work with them to make a difference in their life. They're making a huge difference in mine. So I think sometimes we have these hierarchies and labels, but they're a man-made thing. They're an illusion. I love the saying, we're all just walking each other home.
Yes.
And so we're all teaching each other and learning from each other and sharing and getting gifts from each other and giving gifts to those around us. It's just the question of different ways of doing it.
It's 100%. We should be honoring our differences rather than judging them.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about judging our differences, because I'm here to bring and do what I do. You're here to bring and do what you do. It's just one of those things. Let's get back to wild. I think we know from when we first met that we could just keep on talking, but we're here to talk about WILD, well-being. So share a little more about wild, because you talk about the fact that you've written about it within your book, but share a little bit more about wild, and then we can sort of move further into that.
We were talking earlier, before we kind of came on this call, about perspective and perception, and I shared those 3 quotes. So wild kind of came out of that. It was putting what I've learned from nature and my reading into an acronym that's therefore easy to remember and will stick with you and hopefully therefore support, in terms of, well, how do I relate to me and to the world around me and to my place in that world? And if I can look at the world and myself and my life with a sense of wonder, which is the W. So awe, and I can't remember who it was, but that talk about glimmers, because so often we get stuck into the negative side of life. But instead, if we could look for glimmers, those little things that light us up, those little bits of light that bring joy to our life and to our day. And I think often as adults, particularly in the Western world, we can get quite cynical and jaded and disillusioned. But if we could come back to that childlike, just, it's wonderful. Beginner's mind as well is another way I've heard it described. That just, if we could look with eyes that are fresh, as if we're seeing everything for the first time. And we don't have to do this 24/7. But now and again, when you're feeling a little bit, and just life is hard and it's a slog and it's that uphill struggle, just make a switch. And like with the polyvagal theory, there's the 3 different states we can be in. The dorsal, which is I can't. The sympathetic, which is I must be active. And the ventral, which is like a cat being at home, just enjoying the sunshine, basking, feeling that, and quite sensual as well. So it's kind of like that, just coming into that ventral state of wonder and awe and joy and celebration. And then intuition. So like I was saying with the garden, learning how to work with the space that I had. We had heavy clay soil. I wanted to grow sea holly because I like it. I think it's very pretty. My garden was not going to support sea holly because that needs dry, sandy soil, and I had heavy clay, sodden soil. But I don't know where the forget-me-nots came from, whether I planted them, but they really suited the garden, and they just self-seeded everywhere and went rampant. Every year, sort of May time, I had a carpet of blue. It was so beautiful. And Welsh poppies as well. So they self-seeded, and we had some paving. They self-seeded in the cracks. And I just love that, where nature takes over, reclaims. And we get to do that kind of rewilding concept. We get to do that in our own lives. We are often so conditioned. And Gabor Mate's book, most recent book, talks about the myth of normal, trauma, illness, and healing in a toxic culture, because that's what we're living in. But we've become so accustomed to it that we don't even notice anymore, by and large. So bringing that to consciousness, listening to our own body, knowing that my body is so wise. It's always seeking to support me. It doesn't go wrong. It doesn't make a mistake. It's not necessarily the message that we're getting from society and the medical profession, but that's my belief. Symptoms are just communication. They're the only way our body has to speak to us. It doesn't have any other kind of voice. It just talks to us through how we feel, our emotions and our physical symptoms. So it's listening to that, which is listening to our body. And that inner compass, inner sat nav, that just, you get a feeling. I just know that this is good for me or not good for me. It's a fit or it's off. And I was listening to a book recently that was talking about how that's a very small, quiet voice. It's just that knowing. So we sometimes think of the emotions and, oh, I feel anxious about this, so it can't be right for me. That's a separate thing. That's not your gut. That's maybe a reactivation of a concern. Something happened in the past that makes you nervous, like speaking in public. Often comes up. People worry more about speaking in public than they do about even dying in some situations. So if you're nervous about speaking in public, that doesn't mean to say it's not for you, that you shouldn't do it. Because there might be a message that you have to share, and you know in your gut that it's right for you to share that message. So you might decide that I am nervous about speaking in public, but I have a message. I'm passionate about this message, and that overrides my fear of speaking in public. So I'm going to do it. So that anxiety is not something to hold you back. It's something to explore. And there might be great wisdom in that. And it might actually turn out that the anxiety is just excitement without breath. Is another thing I heard recently. So if I breathe into that anxiety, it'll fire me up with excitement. And that will empower my delivery if I do choose to speak in public, because people will see my passion. And then L, loving ourselves. Like you were saying, we so often get these negative messages when we're growing up that we internalize. And then we don't love parts of ourselves or ourselves at all, which is where I was. I just believed my body was going wrong. It was letting me down. I did not want to be here. So massive shift to, right, I think what we're actually here for is loving ourselves, for getting to know who we really are. And when we can love that, we can let it shine. That thing of, you've been beating yourself up all these years. Has it worked? No. Let's try the flip side of that. Try loving yourself, warts and all. Love yourself for who you are and who you are not. We're not all supposed to be clones. We're not all supposed to be one particular shape, style, taste, anything. Again, variety, spice of life. So allowing ourselves to be who we really are through that loving, because until we love ourselves, we can't let ourselves shine, let our gifts come out. And then D, the dance that I was talking about earlier, just seeing life as we're here to enjoy, bring joy into, we're here to have fun, we're here to milk out experience, because we are the spark of divinity that's here to experience, because divinity is absolute. It just is. So you can't experience light without dark. If you're absolute, you just are. There aren't those contrasts, that duality. So we're lots of different ways of looking at the world. We can see ourselves as one and unity, or we can see duality, and we can see me and other. But that dance is just play with it all, enjoy it all, experience it all, because otherwise life doesn't really have that opportunity to experience. But also because there are so many of us, we can experience it through all the different sets of eyes, all the different bodies and lifetimes and everything. And that feeds into the whole evolution. Because as we experience life, we grow and we bring more to life.
Oh, I'd like to go back to your I. When you were talking about sort of that fear of public speaking. But several years ago, very, very briefly, as a baby, I was hospitalized for 3 months. We're talking 66 years ago. I was hospitalized for 3 months. My parents only got to see me once a week for an hour. Rules and circumstances. Every time they came to see me, Mum said she would pick me up, she would cuddle me, she would tell me how much she loved me. Then she'd go home again without me. What feelings were running rife through my little being? Because as I said, I spent my first birthday in hospital. And then a few years ago, I got to be on The Weakest Link program on television. And I couldn't go up the night before. I'd already got a training workshop that I was running. So I went up very early the following morning. And I was getting ready first thing in the morning. And I felt this churning in my stomach. And what a gift I was given at that point in time. That, I'm guessing, was a feeling I had felt so often when my parents appeared. And then left without me. And I suddenly realized that wasn't fear, that wasn't anxiety, it was anticipation. But it had been given the wrong name because of the circumstances surrounding it. So every time I'd felt that, I would be going into that fear and that anxiety. But that particular morning, it was just like, oh, I misnamed that. So are there feelings that people have that because things happen to them so young, they've misinterpreted the meaning?
Absolutely. And linked with that, self-talk. So if we have assigned a meaning or been given a meaning by somebody else who has reflected back to us saying, oh, you look anxious. Really? And we've taken that on board, particularly when we're very young, because when we're very young, we don't maybe have the language and the cognitive skill to process and make understanding and meaning for ourselves. So we take that on from outside. What comes into us, though, how we store it isn't verbal, it's as emotions. So those can come up. And if they come up, if we haven't processed them in 66 years or whatever, and they come up in the now, we don't, we just feel them. We don't know why, because we don't have a cognitive understanding, because it happened too early on in our lives. We just have a feeling. And then we might kind of, well, what does this feel like? And also our bodies will tune in. Our heart, mind, and gut, we've got those three brains, and the head brain might be going, ooh, I notice my breathing is quicker. My heart is pounding more quickly. I could be anxious. And because we're negatively wired, because we're designed to notice threats and respond to them, we will possibly give it anxiety rather than excitement. Because if we need to be anxious, we need to be on guard. If we're excited, then that'll make it self-evident down the line and, oh, it's all fine. But we need to be prepared in case it is a threat. But then we start thinking, oh, I'm anxious. And it just becomes that feedback loop. And the more we feel anxious, the more we breathe from the top part of our chest. The more we do that, the more we're feeding that loop. And we get into that cycle. And it can spin out of control and we can get into a panic attack. Versus if we can notice, oh, I'm thinking these thoughts. And like you, oh, I realize I'm not feeling that. I'm feeling something else. I'm feeling anticipation or excitement or whatever it is. And then that can bring us back to present moment. We can, right, I'm been breathing from here. I'm going to start breathing from the diaphragm. That'll calm my body down, send the message of, it's fine, we're safe, it's all okay. And we can start to kind of reframe, reprogram when we have that conscious, just tuning in, what's actually going on? Is this real? Is it not real? Oh, I'm okay. Because by and large, most of us are okay. But we may have these anxiety feelings, but they are a gift. They're the opportunity when they come up again to go, what's actually going on here? Am I actually under threat? Is this something from my past? Okay, maybe I need to explore this and give myself some support and to reframe that or whatever I need. Or maybe it's just excitement come up in the moment and I've misunderstood and I can clarify that with myself and just breathe and be excited.
And that's just it, isn't it? It's about us actually getting to know who we are. Yeah. Not who. I would use the word unpick. Other people will use the word unpack. Everything that you've been told about yourself so that you can get rid of what actually doesn't resonate with you and decide to keep those things that do feel totally right for you. And then you can slowly pull in those things that help you to feel who you are. So share, I'm guessing you have a process of working with people. So share a little about your process before we run out of time.
So generally, I like to start working with people by asking them to write a timeline. And that is to record the significant emotional events that have happened in their life as far back as they can. And some of those may just be, well, the family stories was this, or what I've heard from my parents, my siblings was this. But in doing that and bringing it up to the present moment, it's for me, because I then do an analysis on it. And I also look to pick out people's themes and the language that they use and so on. But also it's for the person themselves, because then they recognize, ooh, I've been through quite a few things, more than I'd actually realized. As somebody said to me one time, gosh, I've been through a lot in my life, really big stuff. And I've managed to navigate that and I've survived. So it's recognizing I have been challenged. I wasn't making it up, because sometimes we can kind of sweep it under the carpet and minimalize it and not really acknowledge it and give ourselves permission to feel that and to appreciate how big it was for us. But also, you did survive. You're still here. Well done. Give yourself a pat on the back. Recognize the strengths that you drew on to get to this point and celebrate those, and then you can build on them. So then, as I said, I do an analysis, and that analysis is to look at, well, what are those symptoms that you're experiencing and what is the message that they're seeking to share with you? So what part of your body is experiencing what symptoms, what was happening beforehand, what brings them up for you, and what is the underlying root behind those. So what decisions did you make at some point in your life that have, because I look at it like a spare tire. So if we go through a moment of trauma, that can be big T trauma, it can be little t trauma, it can be overt or covert, it can be cumulative. But whatever happened, and also remembering that it's very subjective, and it depends on what age you are. Because if it happened to you when you were 6, your response is of a 6-year-old, and it may still be in your body as that of a 6-year-old. So we look back as an adult now and think, I shouldn't behave like that now. That was a long time ago. I'm over it now. But maybe that inner child isn't, and it's still holding it for us, not against us, for us to learn and to grow. So looking at what those things are, and then using energetic approaches, maybe it's EFT, maybe it's some other exercises, maybe it's some lifestyle changes, maybe it's some reframing as to how we can support myself and the person, how we can work together to support them to develop their own tools, to navigate this challenge, to learn and to grow from it, to take on board what that message, the wisdom that their body's holding for them, to release and liberate that, what's been held in their body, so they can take it on board. And the aim is that they then have those tools going forward.
And the important aspect is they participate in their own healing journey, because we cannot do it for them.
They lead their own healing journey. They are their own healing journey. I'm here to hold a safe space. If they need it, I'll walk beside them for a while as just somebody who's maybe been there, done that. I'm here to be your support. I'm here to be your cheerleader. I'm here to maybe see the things in you that you can't see yet. But it's all already there. I'm not making anything, doing anything, healing anything. It's all in you. I just help you to pull it out and see it for yourself.
And you mentioned sort of earlier about when you were taking the pills and you were going to see or not taking them, going to see go for the emotional support that wasn't, it didn't work because that wasn't right for you, but you were looking for them to wave the magic wand and make it all be better. And what we learn is that, and it's like that, well, what can I do for me? It's realizing it's actually, you have to be the lead in it. You have to participate. Nobody can do it for you. It's not this magic pill cures all these days. It can't and it won't.
I like to look at it as you get to. You have a choice. There is no have to, but you get to. Yeah. And there's a quote from A.H. Almas where he says, your pain is your pain. It won't materialize in anybody else's life other than yours because it is your pain. But it's from the part of you that loves you most. It wants to share a gift with you. It's that gift that we might not ask for or have chosen, but when we unwrap it, it's the best gift. It really is a love gift. It's challenging. There might be a hell of a lot of tape on it. It's hard to get in there and really appreciate it, but it is so amazing. We can't see it from where we are now because it's in our next evolution that we go through when we do the processing and we assimilate that learning. So we can't see it from here, but it is amazing. And it's like, I think of, like climbing a mountain and you think that's the peak, but you get there and it's not, it's the foothills. There's another and another and another, but we can't see that until we get to the next level. Or you're walking down a road and you can't see what's around the corner until you get around the corner. And it's a whole new vista that you never imagined. So I think the healing journey is a bit like that.
Oh, yeah. And I am so pleased I started down mine. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many years you're doing it. Every now and again, it'll decide to crop back up again. And it's just the next level, the layers of the onion, sort of have a good cry. Crying is so good for you, providing it's a release and not pity for yourself.
And don't block it. Let it all come out. Don't stop yourself partway through, because chances are that's what happened to you when you were a child. You know, somebody told you, that's all right, don't cry anymore. Or, you know, you shouldn't be so upset about X, Y, Z. There was something else I was going to say about what you were saying there, and it's now gone.
Seriously, this has been brilliant. But we are coming to the end of the program. So is there, and I'm sure there is loads we haven't touched on. We could probably talk about loads of it. But is there anything in particular that you think we haven't touched on that you would like to share? And we are going to share your website, and I'll make sure that's under the video on YouTube as well.
I think what I'd like to just round it up with is to give ourselves permission. So often there is still an element of self-care is selfish. Whereas for me, it's the best gift that we can give not only ourselves, but everybody around us. Because then it's not just the rest of us at the end of everything else that we give to people. It's the best of us. And we role model. This is a really good thing to do. So other people look at us and think, oh, they do it. It must be good. It must be a really good thing to do, not only for them, because I feel I benefit when they look after themselves, so do I, particularly if you're a parent, because obviously you're role modeling that to your children, and what better time and age for people to be learning it than when they're small and when they're young. And in relation to that, I have a playlist on my YouTube channel, which is self-care exercises. So just to encourage people to give themselves permission to find out what works for them. Might not be the ones I've got on my channel, but whatever because there's so much out there. You can Google, you can search, whatever you find resonates for you. But be prepared also to try new things, because something might work for a particular situation at a particular time in your life, and then it's not doing what it used to do. That's fine. Just swap it out for something else and maybe come back to it later. But keeping things fresh is nice as well.
And it's a matter of some people, you resonate with other people, some people, but they don't with others. It's why I encourage my guests to share their story, because people, oh, wow, this individual gets it. Because at the end of the day, we have all been through things. I don't think I've come across anybody who's come into these techniques that hasn't had the experiences that have led them to this.
Yeah.
That's what it's important, is if something resonates, if something you've heard here from Robyn speaks to you, I like the word resonates because I work with sound, but speaks to you, then please check out her website. Now is that Equenergy?
It is, yes.
EQUENERGY, Equenergy, and I put it in the chat. I will also put it under the video on YouTube. So please check out the website, and if you wish to I'm assuming you've got a contact page on your website.
I have, yes, tabs across the top. I think it's the second one in, might be even the first one these days.
So consider connecting with Robyn. To be perfectly honest, with the way life is, we have nothing to lose by exploring new things, new ways that support us to become truer to ourselves. That's the important thing. Robyn, thank you so much. This has been so interesting, and listening to sort of things that you were saying, sort of I've learned from this as well. But I know that you and I very much speak a similar language, as do most of my guests, which is brilliant. So thank you so very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a joy and an honor for me too. Thank you, Sara Jane.
Thank you. Next week, we have a Today's Conversation program for you to do with a book that I led that was launched yesterday. But this is just an abbreviation of that. Selfish or harder to manipulate is the topic. And I'm with Scott, myself and Scott, who's one of the other authors, are being joined by two of the other authors, Dr. Anthony Wilson and Dorian Delorier. We've been joined by them. Our topics for that are going to be, scroll down, awareness and a healing process, allowance, acceptance, surrender, forgiveness. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going beyond what we've shared in the book. I hope that you will join us. There is so much wonderful information. And please do explore our catch-up pages here on Gift of Healing TV, because there is so much. And Robyn's video will be up under the interviews page as well. So please check it out. You know, there is an awful lot here for all of you. There's something that you're looking for. It'll speak to you when it's time for you. Take care. Be safe. Stay well. Namaste, sweet souls. Thank you, Robyn. Bye.